This is the 300 brake horsepower dual motored version of Volkswagen's hugely successful ID.4, but this is the GTX version of it. There's two trims in Ireland, one's from mid-50s and this one is from €70,000. King's Red is the colour, and apart from that it's the only optional extra on this car, so it'll actually be a great way to give you an insight into what you get as standard. The biggest difference is, apart from the little GTX badges on the side here at the front, the other front bit that's mainly different, a little bit of a different diffuser going on, and your bad weather lights, as they're actually called. Remember they were called fog lights or spotlights? They're also different. That's how you know it's a GTX version. But the Matrix headlights, which are fully standard, and they'll dynamically bend around roads, and this white strip, again, does look like an ID.4. And there's kind of a similar vibe around the side profile of the car. You wouldn't really notice anything. As I mentioned, the GTX badge, the roof rails are black, it's kind of a two-tone roof, but you can spec that on an ID.4 if you like. Your charging point is still here on the side of the car. This one is coming on 21-inch alloy wheels. You can spec them on many other versions of the ID.4 as well though, so even that kind of vibe doesn't stand out. A little bit of a difference going on back here. So you have a GTX badge here, that's different, and your diffuser down here, I think it's charcoal is the official colour of it, bit of a grey vibe going on. You can still get that full light strip though on a standard ID.4. But it does look a little bit better, and I don't know, maybe makes it just sit a bit lower or something. And then tailgate is electric, although it's not fully keyless, so I can hold down the key and that will close the car in theory. Maybe not on this occasion. But then you need the key to open the doors of the car. And then does it want me to kick? Maybe if I lock it. Aha, there we go. So you can actually adjust that by itself with the key, but not the doors. There's lots going on here, including a kind of a net storage area that will hook on to many tethering hooks throughout the car. That's standard. There is somewhere to keep your cables and charging cables down here. There's a further space down here also, and you can slightly adjust the depth of that boot should you need to. There's 12-volt charging, there's bright white LED lights, and it's a pretty flat load in if you're getting pets and dog boxes in and out of the vehicle, which I was able to do with ease. The only thing was with a dog box, I had to take this out and leave it in the house because there's nowhere obvious for it to sit in under here. Still, the full benefit of a flat floor leaves rear passengers with a decent amount of leg room. There's extra storage pockets here for devices and tablets, and further ones down here, although they've kind of removed the little tablet logo or icon or whatever on the back of the seats. Armrest is good, decent angle to it. You can access the boot through there should you wish, and you have your own independent climate control with two USB-C ports in the Max version of the car, although I feel like I've seen them in the ID.4 as well. But good leg room, good all-around visibility, a decent support on the back of your thighs, to be honest with you. Although there are leg extenders on this GTX version of it, they'd be lovely in the back though, just saying. And you can independently operate your child locks back here also, which I clearly, as usual, have left on by mistake. Now, I am no fashion expert, look at me, but I do know you should never mix navy with black, and that's what they've done inside here. Now, there's 30 different colour options for changing these lights. I think red just suits it. But you have this leatherette over the dashboard, which is soft at the touch, and you know, it definitely adds a layer of quality that people were crying out for in standard ID.3 and ID.4s. It just kind of clashes though, it's strange. All down here is still very similar. Two USB-C ports, there's wireless charging, there's storage areas that you can individually move things around if you need more space, less space, all that stuff. The armrests are now leather. Again, I would have liked to see just a normal armrest because it's the GTX version, you know what I mean? The seats, equally, they've got massage functions, electric functions, massage in both passenger and driver, by the way. But it just says ID here. Where's the red stitching that says GTX? So that's something. Haptic buttons are still on this steering wheel. That can be heated, and it feels very nice when it's heated. The leather is a great quality. All the shortcut buttons are still here. I can't say I've had a single issue with the speed of software. There was one occasion where I couldn't get the aircon to go on to automatic climate control. Don't know what that was about. Turned it on and off 50 times. In case you haven't seen it, the double tap brings you to your heated seat shortcut. Double tap it again, it reduces in the heat until it goes off. If you haven't seen that before, it is a handy little tip. And you can remove things like this for cup holders if you don't need them, and there's good storage options. I still can't get to grips properly with this control panel for adjusting the mirrors. I press it and the child locks come on. I just give us a simple, straightforward little control panel there, please, Volkswagen. Just get rid of that. It doesn't work. Sorry. And I like that you can charge the car without it being plugged in and preheated the next morning and all that stuff, and you have access to your chargers and your data and your sat-nav and your wireless CarPlay. It's all here and all works really, really well. It's also pretty handy that they've installed 2 new chargers here on Sir John Rogerson's Quay. It's definitely progression. They're 50 kilowatt chargers. It'd be amazing to see 100 kilowatt. And you can also block it with a normal car, as that white car in the background is. But interesting, there's some guys checking out the ID.4 GTX in the background. It's obviously the colour, just the spec of it. And I think just to see something so futuristic looking plugged in can sometimes be a bonus for people. So I'm not complaining. It's good to see more chargers. Disappointing to see that you can just ice them. And it would be great to see faster chargers in the city centre like this, more and more of them, because so many are just the usual ones that you rock up and you get to charge at 7 kilowatts if you're lucky. 299 brake horsepower, let's call it 300. 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. It feels very much all that. However, in the terms and conditions, the small print, to achieve the constant burst of power at maximum output is for 30 seconds. You have to have a state of charge of above 80%. The battery needs to be between 25 and 35 degrees Celsius. There's a lot of terms and conditions that apply until you can get to full power. But it still feels very, very quick at all times. So it's dual motored. It's give or take, you know, assuming everything is working fine, 100 brake horsepower up on the standard ID.4. Does it feel like a different car to drive? If I'm being honest, no, it doesn't. It just feels quicker at times, and there is more grip. There's a stretch of road that I'm very, very familiar with, and if I'm driving a rear-wheel drive car and I accelerate just as I'm coming out of the bend, it always gets a bit tail happy. Did it yesterday in this, and the grip was just planted. So if you do want loads of grip, then the GTX version is the one that you should be considering. If you're looking for a hot hatch vibe, you'll be kind of scratching your head in some ways, because it does feel quick in a straight line, but like you do get neck snapping action when you floor it. So there is all that, and it goes into a bend pretty well. Like, the batteries, that said, weigh almost half a ton on their own. So it's a heavy car. It's nice to have so many driving aids. This thing has everything. Travel assist, cruise control. It's got your blind spot going on. If you're not familiar with the travel assist, it will speed up and slow down for you according to road signs. It knows what's coming up. It'll adjust the cruise control. It'll keep up and stop start traffic. There's so many great things, like minor adjustments to the steering. If you're approaching a roundabout, it knows you are, and it'll apply a little bit of gentle braking. The same with traffic. It all but drives the car for you, to be honest with you. Another lovely feature, I like it anyway, is the augmented heads-up display. Now, some people aren't fans. I think the way it gives you information, the way it encourages you to ease off the throttle, because you're approaching a roundabout as I am now. Like, the colour of it is good. When you're using the nav, the way it arrows towards different directions, so it really does its best to try and stop you getting lost. I think all those features are wonderful, and they work so well, and they don't intrude. Sometimes these additions kind of ruin the enjoyment of the car, or they end up annoying you because they don't work properly. They do. I will say the drive in the centre of the lane error is still here. it's still popping up. So Volkswagen, I'm sure you don't need me telling you, but that needs to be sorted out, because it's doing that for well over a year and a half. In fact, some non-EV models that all kind of share the same software in essence all have that feature. Please drive in the center of the lane, where the car is confused and thinks you're veering over. It's lovely to have dynamic chassis control as standard, because you can tweak things to your exact liking. If you don't like things a bit too firm, especially with the bigger alloys that are on this car, there's a nice option just to, soften everything down, stiffen it up if you're having a bit of a dice and you want the car to handle as best as possible. Like the engine whirring that kicks in as you speed up or you take away from a set of lights. No fake engine sounds are needed to, remind you that you're driving an EV. You get it. Fuel efficiency wise, a standard ID.4, ID.3 will do about 18, 19 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. This is doing 23 over 3,500 kilometers. So an additional, give or take, 100 brake horsepower, an additional 5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Also, since this car has been charged, I've done 174 kilometers and the range has 145 left in it. So let's assume that 145 is 120. Let's be generous. That would suggest you're going to get 300 kilometers of range out of a full battery in January, in temperatures that are not particularly warm, 2 degrees, 3 degrees at times when I've been running the car. It does have an impact. Summertime, the weather heats up, the car is more efficient. That's just the way EVs work. I know it might seem mad, it's true. Same way turbo engines enjoy colder weather. Expect 300 kilometers, and anything else is a bonus. The quoted figures are about 460 odd, and then the cheaper version of the GTX is about 480, and the standard ID.4 is supposedly 511 kilometers, thereabouts. I do know people who run them during summer, and certainly they do say there is a big noticeable difference. Whether they get the full 500, I haven't quite heard that at the same time. Oh, it's quite hard if you're caught by a ramp by surprise. So it'll go around the corner, but it depends what's coming next around the other side. Ouch. If you don't like particularly firm setups, you need to get the 19-inch alloy wheels. That would be my advice for you. But it does breeze past traffic. Here's coming into a bend where I know there isn't a ramp. Yeah, for the weight of it, it's not bad. That's all right, actually. That's quite acceptable. Pulling away from a set of lights like that in an EV, it's always just so enjoyable. It doesn't really matter what's beside you. You're probably going to beat it, unless it's another EV. I'm just going to stick on my massaging seat here to try and relieve the stress of traffic. Makes a little bit of a noise, actually. Oh, there it is. Pushing into my lower back and then releasing. It sounds like Darth Vader when it exhales and then goes again. Definitely feels like you have more power than an ID.4 there now. That sort of burst away from the traffic lights. Can't deny that. In traffic though, 90% of the time, will you benefit from dual motored performance? Will you benefit from the extra 100 brake horsepower? Essentially, does this GTX version drive differently to a standard long-range ID.4? I don't think it does. But if you're not into the Tesla Model Y, but you want a car that can charge reasonably fast, not as fast as the Tesla in fairness, has not quite the same power output, but a better power output, can do everything that Tesla can do in terms of space and just body style, design and everything, then it is, even on price, it's very, very comparable between the Tesla Model Y and this more expensive version of the ID.4. So it sits right in there. And then it might just come down to badge. You know, some people prefer to have a Tesla over a Volkswagen, and equally people will prefer to have a Volkswagen that's familiar and has a dealer network, and you know, something goes wrong, they can drop it off pretty much anywhere. That's the idea in theory anyway. So it's another great offering from the ID.4 family. It's a very expensive offering, although you're probably looking at almost 50 grand now for a decent spec ID.4 standard, but not standard trim. And with that in mind, if you were to go for the cheaper version of this GTX, then you're kind of into low to mid 50s, but you're getting so much extra stuff as standard. Then it's something to think about. The 70 grand version of the car, probably not. The VW ID.4 GTX version that builds on what is already a really successful, well-rounded platform. I think at this price point in Ireland, we're not going to see too many of these. And looking at the numbers of standard ID.4s which have sold, I mean, it's pretty much Ireland's best-selling electric vehicle. And that combined with the ID.3 share is phenomenal. This will probably be minuscule in terms of numbers. You might want people who want an all-wheel drive version of the ID.4. I get that. Maybe a bit more power and a few more extras such as heat pumps and stuff as standard. But it's a great package. It's just an expensive one. Thank you very much for watching this review. And if you do have any comments or questions, you'd like to subscribe or support us on Patreon, there's links down below to do all those bits. And I'll see you on the next one.